Hey guys, how you doing? Hope you guys, if you're in the States like I, hope you guys are having a great Labor Day weekend so far. Hope you guys are having a great Labor Day. So I thought I'd do something a little bit different this time by actually deciding to actually stream on a Monday for once. And since I was actually off and work from it, I figured why not do a special stream for you guys here. So since today will be a little bit different, I'm actually be starting on a sketch I actually started on already earlier today. And so I did this sketch of Homer Simpson actually like shredding on guitar. So I figured what I would go ahead and do is I'll go and actually kind of finish, kind of like fine tune the sketch a bit more before I start adding some color. So what I'm gonna do here, let me kind of start his hand here. Let me kind of get sure his hand, make sure the rest of his hand actually looks pretty good before I move on to the rest of his body. Let's get his little arm. Let me get the other side of his palm for where his thumb would normally be. Also, let me just get the neck. Think about it, let's get the neck of the good guitar. I figured maybe he's playing like just a regular Stratocaster. Cause I figured for him they'll probably might want to play something more classic. So let's see. Get the neck. So let me see how some of these necks look. See at the down at the top. Let me kind of have a little round edge at the bottom. Come have a little neck come. Have the other side kind of come up to a bright little curve. I'm gonna bring that up. Have the little head come up the top up here. And then get the underside. Get the underside of his neck. Of the guitar neck. Have like 6 like little tuning pegs. I figured maybe I'll make it one that's probably more of a then again, maybe it's not a shot. Maybe I'll do one that's more of a hollow body. I know there's a probably different name for it. I can't think of it at the moment. So I think I'll give this kind of a thicker base. Thicker body structure. Then we get the siding here. We get the little tuning peg. Not tuning pegs, the other parts of the guitar in the middle. Also, let's actually get his little fingers. Yeah, and I did another sketch when I was in. I did Krusty earlier. While doing some late night stream. In fact, I'll actually show that in just a little bit because I kind of been working on and off during the weekend. So that's another one I'm actually gonna show like later on. Hey Shay, glad you dropped in. It's good to see you again. I'm currently on another cartoon of Joanna. Oh nice. Well, I can't wait to see once it's done. Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing that. So let me get his arms. One neat thing about Simpson kid, like since they just have pretty rubbery arms, I'm not too concerned about making sure like their muscles have like a lot of definition. Even though depending on like how they're drawn, sometimes be drawn with a little more definition. Let's get the actually if I'm going to do, I get the guitar strap. So actually it goes around over his shoulder. So let me kind of bring that out, go across the shoulder or across his shirt. Also, while I'm doing that, let's cover out the collar of his shirt a bit more here too. Bring that out here. Get the side of his shirt. Also, let's get his other shirt. Here's our little sleeve here, little short sleeve. And also, so now start working on the face. Get the nose, I'm gonna bring that out. Let me get his teeth and make sure his bottom lip is smaller. That's what I always try to make sure with his bottom lip. It always kind of goes in above his top, above the top lip. I know back in the beginning when I was trying to draw Simpson kids, I always tend to screw up. I kind of made them all equal, about the equal amount, and in doing so, it kind of made them look a little hard, a little more Hulkish like. Which, ironically enough, actually he was like a Hulk character at one point. So let's bring his little eyes. Let's bring his little pupils. I think we kind of bring these up a bit. I think I have one of these guys' little eyes closed. Let's get his little cranium. I'm gonna bring it on down and around. Let's get his tiny little ears. Let's get his so small little hairs, his stray hairs that he's got. I figured I'd start on from. I was just considering like starting from scratch, like live. But I figured like this one's since I'm planning on doing a lot more with this stream for today. I figured let me kind of get some of the harder stuff out of the way before I get into the fun part, which will be, like adding like the line work and coloring. Alright, so I think that's looking pretty good. So I think what I can go ahead and do now is move on to our inking stage. So what I'm going to do here, let me just kind of start with his eyes here. You get around his nose. And you can see when I kind of drew out his eyes, I kind of drew out both circles first, and then initially once I started kind of drawing him being kind of like closed off, basically I only drew him like halfway here. I only drew a certain amount here. Only went to a certain portion here, did a certain portion here. Just kind of went across in the middle of both of them. I think I have his lip. His title kind of protrude out a little bit more here. I didn't want to do it too much because I know really that's really more of a type of that little overbite where it kind of protrudes out. That's really more something that Krusty the Clown has, in his design, rather than Homer. Because both of their designs are pretty similar. Because those of you who are big on your Simpsons trivia may already know that originally there was plans for Homer was actually Krusty the whole time. Hence why their designs being so similar, and also why they both share the same voice actor, Dan Castellaneta. So let me bring around here, of course, around it, his own mouth area, it's a lot rounder out, whereas, Krusty, he would kind of have a little droopy indent on the side. Let me just kind of bring his cranium around. Just kind of go around his little shirt collar. Look at the other part of his shirt collar. Let's get his sleeves. Let's get his guitar now. I'm gonna kind of bring this down and bring it on down. I think I have it curved whereas I bring it towards guitar. bring the other part of his sleeve. I'm gonna bring that down. Also, let's kind of bring around his little arms. Let me kind of bring these in a bit. I know I have kind of slender, make his arms a little more slender. Because a lot of times, every time I'm drawing these in characters, especially with Homer, I always tend to make his arms like really big, so they're almost like Popeye arms in a way. And I don't intend to do that. I think I have a little guitar pick in the middle. Let me get the back side of his shirt. And you can see I'm trying to have everything go in a good have everything have a certain motion in a way too. You know, have that certain like line of action. So all the lines that are on this side, they're all kind of going towards a certain direction, where there's kind of having this continuous curve. Let me get part of his legs. I'm probably gonna save the guitar towards the end because I feel like the guitar is probably gonna be the thing we're probably spend the most time on. Let me get his little fingers. One upside, you know, if Simpson characters having only 4 fingers, you know, their hands are a lot easier to draw. It's weird how they always get so much easier to do when they have one less appendage. It's funny, it's strange. But even just when drawing hands, like it's true. Like once you have that extra, you lose that extra finger. Probably if you, I don't know if they usually move like the pinky or like one of the middle fingers, or one right next to the middle finger. It always seems a lot easier to do at that point. And I figured maybe he's probably got a leg raised up. Alright, so now I'm gonna bring down the neck of the guitar. And bring down the side. I'm trying to remember, do these things kind of taper out? I'm just kind of working from a good number of reference photos because fortunately I don't have a guitar on hand. That is something I am I am considering probably getting one, is maybe actually getting a guitar, because as much as I love listening like a lot of times to like guitar music, I love listening to a lot of rock music. For some reason I've never gotten around to playing guitar, because I think the only instrument I can somewhat play is probably maybe, you know, just really piano really, and that's pretty much it for the most part. And even then, it's like I don't know how to play any actual songs per se. So let me get the lower side of it here. Maybe that would be a mix between like a Stratocaster and a hollow body. That's probably what I'll go ahead and do for this one. Because I do know there are some custom-made guitars out there too. There's plenty of them. Because I know, for example, like Eddie Van Halen's Frankenstrat, I think if I recall the name comes up, I think it's built, I think from 2 separate guitars. I think it's like Stratocaster and I think it's something else too. I'm trying to remember what it's made up for. The Frankenstrat, let me look it up real quick. That's right, Nerva Super Strat is made from a Northern Ash Stratocaster body with a pickup routing from a Gibson humbucking pickup. Okay, so it's got a little bit of a mixture of both a Gibson and a Stratocaster. Let me get the side. Let me get the side of the car. I'm having to come down. And just kind of go along the edge of the body. Gonna come down, around, come back up to the bottom here, have it connect here. Have a section in the middle here where a lot of tuning pegs are going to be. Have a section that runs down along this on the front of the body. I need to get better at actually kind of like drawing from different angles though. Cause I know there are probably a few times where I've actually tried drawing them, you know, like from the side, drawing them like from a dramatic angle where it foreshortened. And for some reason, they're always kind of tricky to do when I do them that way. L section here. I think I probably where the L section at the bottom. Just different plugs put in. I think I'll have the plug right here. Let me go around it at the little indentations on the neck of the guitar. You have the little body parts for the guitar and have those strings come all the way down. Just gonna bring it all the way down, trying to get as straight as I can get it. Not too concerned about making sure it's completely heavy as long as I kind of fill up the fretboard. I think if I ever got a guitar, I have to kind of wonder what type of guitar I want to get. Would I want to start with an acoustic, which is probably best I should go ahead and do. If I were to ever invest in a guitar, to start with an acoustic first, just to kind of see, well, one, because I think I heard those are a lot less expensive than getting an electric guitar. But also, you know, let's get an idea and see how much I like the instrument. Alright, I think that's looking alright. That is looking pretty good. So, I almost forgot, you know, part of his hair. That's looking pretty good. So now, let's move on to our fun part, which is coloring. So let me get my markers. So since I'm usually using like sketch paper, I really don't want to use too many of these alcohol-based markers. So I do have a few water-based ones on hand. In fact, use a Crayola one to be exact. I'm just gonna be using that to kind of lay down the base. And also, one thing I found out, you know, for using water-based markers, like I have to worry less about the issue of them bleeding, because you know if I use alcohol-based markers like on top of like ballpoint pen, it'll go okay, but I gotta be really careful because like it will bleed, and it will make the ballpoint pens kind of like bleed and smear. So that is something I definitely have to kind of keep in mind whenever I'm working, you know, with ballpoint pens, and you know I'm using markers. Luckily, since yellow's already a pretty bright color to begin with, I don't have to worry too much about streakiness. At least not too much, because I haven't really used. I don't think I've used this marker too much, because otherwise, because you see, it's not really streaking just yet. All right, that looks pretty good. Now let's see what colors I got on hand. Shit, what about the light blue that I can use? Oh, good, perfect, I do. Hope sure it's not out of focus. Oh, there we go, perfect. So I'm just gonna go over, it's kind of parallax here, just kind of bring that down. I forget if this one's water-based, if it is completely water-based or if it's alcohol-based. I forget either way. Actually, you know what? Now that I think about it, I think this one is alcohol-based, because it's not really all that streaky and kind of smelled a little bit. That's the thing. I got so many different markers. There were even some where I forgot if either they were either alcohol-based or water-based, because I haven't really used them that often. But in that case, so what I'll normally do is if I'm using kind of sketch paper, because since sketch paper is not really designed for using alcohol-based markers. So what I'll do is I try to make sure I lay down a pretty light layer, and I try best not to really overwork it too much. Because luckily you can see it's already bled through a good bit through the paper, but I haven't added too much because of course it's not really bleeding onto here. Well, I might see a little smudges here and there, but luckily it's not that much. So that's why I always try to work pretty light when working like this. And so let me see what I want to do for the strap. Let me see. Let me see what other colors I can use. Let's see what I have. Okay, perfect. So I'm gonna do a little bit of color mixing here. So I'm gonna start with a little bit of green here, because what I'm doing, I'm gonna make kind of like a light brown, because I don't have any light brown like markers at the moment. So I'm gonna do a little bit of improvising here. So first I'm gonna get a nice good layer of this light green. Then what I'm gonna go ahead and do, in fact, I'll kind of let this kind of dry for a brief moment. Because I do need a light brown. You do need a light brown for this, but I'm gonna use in pencil form. In fact, I'm actually gonna get to that in just a little bit later on. I'm gonna go over this orange to kind of go over it, kind of give this a nice light brown. Hey, Spiffy, I'm glad you dropped in. Good to see you. He came at a good time too. I've just started coloring this in. Yeah, this was a sketch I'd started on kind of earlier in the day. And in fact, one thing I probably will go and do now is that let me show you what other sketch I've been kind of working on and off on since last night. Is that I did another kind of another sketch similar to what you're looking at now with Krusty. So this is what I did with Krusty from last night. Well, I did for a little bit of last night. In fact, I wanted to kind of show it for y'all today, so it'll be kind of a surprise. I did that. Part of the reason I feel inspired to do that because I'd already did something similar that on a slightly smaller scale with Barney. In fact, that was actually kind of the first one, that I did here, with him here. So that was kind of an experiment where I was kind of working with more thicker shadows, And it's a really hard color ones too. So I really liked how it turned out. Of course, of course, just looking at the other sketches. There's another thing I did not too long ago too. Another thing I did with Radigan. So I ended up loving how well that turned out. Yeah, I might have to probably do something else like for the spatial year, so I'm not gonna worry about that just yet. I'm trying to think, what else can I do here? Yeah, I love Crossing Bar, Two Fairs of Wickham. Oh yeah, yeah, they're all great. It's like speaking of them, I've been kind of slowly kind of going through the I know I mentioned to you. I think we were on this actually on Discord how I've been kind of slowly been going through the classic Simpsons episodes, on Disney Plus. They're kind of rewatching them. And what's interesting is that a lot of the classic era episodes I hadn't really seen. I had seen for the very first time, and so it was kind of like. And so of course, for a lot of episodes, like since I'd heard about them for the longest period of time. In fact, I'm gonna use color pencils like for the rest of these eras now. Since I had heard about this for the longest period of times, I kind of put off watching one because I wasn't sure if I would like them or not. Plus, since they're hyped up so much, you're afraid it's not gonna live up to expectations, cause you know how it is sometimes. Cause you know how sometimes you can have like this great show or movie, or this movie or this TV show that's really popular, but you never get around to check it out because you're almost concerned that when you do watch it, it's not gonna live up to your expectations. And one thing, but luckily, at least what I'm seeing in classic year so far, it actually has been living well so far. I think the most recent one I saw, I think was the classic like monorail episode. That one was actually pretty good. And I saw like, okay, I see why everyone loves loves this season, especially season like 4. Because personally, even though I've seen a handful of different episodes throughout different periods of the show, for right now I really specifically love how the show looked during season 3 and 4. Because it's got that nice mix of the old and the new as far as classic heroes. Because it's not completely rough and off model like the first season was, where it's very rough around the edges. But it's not completely streamlined like the later season would be. It has that nice bit of like cartooniness and that streamlined look to it. And plus, it helps that season 4, season 3 and 4, that's when I started getting a little more experimental with the animation, where they started having more like darker shadows, more vibrant colors, like for certain scenes. So yeah, I just really generally love the how it should look during this specific period. So I figured what I do want to do like a cream color here. So what I'm gonna do here is add just a little bit of use a bit of brown and orange. Because I wanted to have a cream like pastry color. You'll probably see why in just a little bit. I definitely like some of the modern ones. The modern shows have some good jokes, especially the Cows Jags. It's very good this core. Yeah, I definitely agree, and I'm definitely one of those people who definitely thinks that modern Simpsons isn't as disposed as other people make it out to be. Because, funny enough, when I started checking out, I started out with some of the more newer seasons. I was watching it, with little to no expectation. I was like, you know what? These aren't as bad as people made it out to be. But sure, like they're not as consistent bangers as like the old seasons back in the day. But they're still watchable. Yeah, because then like Family Guy. Because I think no offense to any folks who do like Family Guy. Family Guy, like they just tend to, if they're not like bad, they just tend to be boring. In fact, I remember kind of coming across, I think a tweet back when I was on Twitter how Simpsons tend to be really inconsistent between being like really funny, really boring. Where Family Guy tends to be more consistent, but a lot of episodes tend to be more kind of like middle of the road. Which I don't know though. Let me see. I say where Jewish priests appear to protect the laws. Oh, I think I've heard about that. I've only seen parts, but I haven't checked the old episode yet. I need to check that one out because I do love them. Judas Priest. They get a lot of really good. They've had a lot of like rock stars appear appear on the show. I know one that comes to mind. In fact, it kind of inspired the inspiration for this one. Treehouse of Horror. Yeah, Treehouse of Horror stuff. Their stuff has always been like pretty good, as far as quality goes. Cause at least those ones where they'll actually try out new ideas and see what works and see what doesn't work. But yeah, last I checked, Treehouse Horror stuff, at least from what I've seen from new seasons, they are still pretty good. Yeah, so this is kind of a good like brownish color. Cause I figure like since Homer likes donuts, I think I'll make this kind of. Think I'll have the color pink, but like pink icing. Since like the pink one was kind of become the iconic. In a way, it's kind of like almost the iconic when referring to like the Homer. So I'm just kind of lightly go over this, with some pink. I am gonna kind of blend this out later on. But yeah, as I've been kind of like going through like the show, I'm just kind of really taking going into with zero expectations. And I feel like in doing that, like you're able to actually kind of appreciate something like for what it is, rather than actually like seeing it for what you hoped it would be. In fact, so one thing I'll do next, let me add some of these sprinkles. So it's a sprinkle-filled donut, if you will. I'm sorry, I think I lost. Favorite RZ bar gets out. Oh yeah, that's a really good one. Yeah, I think I can't remember where I heard it from, but I think someone was saying, what, that episode was considered one of the first where the show really kind of started hitting its stride. Even though I think like season one, while it's not perfect, it's definitely still has lots of expressive of like what was to come. Oh gosh, I can't. As far as right now, I can't tell what is in my favorite because that monorail episode that I saw recently, that was really good. I really did enjoy that. But I'm trying. It's either that or the what's that other one? So on either that when Homer accidentally becomes a hero for saving the nuclear plant. No, actually, you know what? I think it probably been better. Probably the one with I think it's Lisa's first wording. That's probably the one. Because everything about it, because that has a lot of really good jokes. In fact, that's something I didn't realize until watching these older episodes that this. Actually, I'm gonna get my pen for a moment. Hang on. Stand by. Where's that pen? Where's the pen? I just had it a moment ago. I think I got it. Yeah, here we go. Because that's something that Probably got perfect time to help me distract from my sick right now. Got food poisoning. Oh man, I'm really sorry to hear that. Yeah, I hope you get better soon. Yeah, food poisoning's no joke. Yeah, I remember the last time. Probably the only time I got food poisoning. My stepdad, well, ex-stepdad, but that's a whole nother story. I think he had cooked some ham that we had in the that we had sitting in our freezer. We had it for a long time, and to be fair, we should have really cooked it sooner. Yeah, I can see right now I'm kind of going over with a thick pan. And we had sitting in the freezer for a long period of time. So of course, he decided to go and take it out so we could cook it. But what had happened was, so we went and got seasoned up. We went and put it in the oven. And I remember, I think the issue was I think he set when I came home. I saw it was sitting in the oven, and I thought it was done. It looked done. It tasted like it was done, so it was good. But then I remember later on that next morning, like I was just throwing up. I was kind of heaving. Yeah, it was bad. I was playing with Brad all day. In fact, later on, I ended up kind of tossing the whole thing because I thought maybe it had gone bad, and it probably did. But the thing is, like, it was in the oven, and then later on when he finally did come back, because he was pretty much gone all that night before, and most of the next day. And then when I told him what happened, he told me, "Well, Reggie, it wasn't done." And I was like, "What do you mean? It looked like it was done." But yeah, it was not a great day, having really kind of like deal with that. So yeah, I hope you feel better soon. Cause yeah, I know food poisoning. Yeah, that's no joke. Yeah, I think at this time I kind of experiment using more like thicker lines. That could be spaghetti for me. Tasted fine, looked fine. Next, I was nauseous. Lucky I throw though. I told myself not. Oh wow. Oh man. And you know the thing is, like once you've had it though, like you start getting kind of paranoid once you have it again next time. Because I know, I think for after that happened, because of course I think it was in the summer when this happened too. I mean, I avoided. I think it was a long time avoiding. I think even like that following Thanksgiving, like later on that year, I think I did eat some, but I didn't get that much. Like I just got really paranoid about eating any more ham, like for the rest of the year. And I don't know if it was the fact that that it was old, that ham was old, that had been sitting for a long time. It could have been that. That was a combination, of it, that wasn't finished cooking and had been sitting in the oven for a long time because I knew from I knew like since I got home, since my stepdad wasn't there, and of course that was a period where he was kind of going out for a long period of time, wouldn't come back until like either late day or early in the morning. And I figured if it wasn't fully cooked and it was just sitting in the oven for a long period of time, that might have happened. Now, it seems pretty obvious. I was looking back at it now. I was like at now, but at the time, I figured, well, it's probably fine. I'm so paranoid too. It's even for a different restaurant, baby. Just way better than I was at the beginning of the day. Just joined the show drinking some cola. Well, good, good. I'm glad you are still starting to kind of feel a little bit better. So that's good. Because it's also one of those deals. Because like even, because I've never had like four. Because it's like once you have it in there, it just feels like no matter what you put in, it's like it just keeps coming. It just keeps coming. And you don't know when it's going to stop. Let me just kind of go along the edge, and that's even though it's a pretty thick, even though this is a pretty thick like pen I'm working here, I'm kind of going pretty lightly for some of these thicker lines. And that's the thing though, I'm trying to actually kind of get in the spirit of actually kind of using more thicker lines anyway. And in fact, you'll probably see why I'm going pretty thick for you now, because I'm actually going even thicker in some areas, like later on down the line. I don't think about it, but other than separate thick line art, especially with my art, as you've probably seen. Oh yeah, I've definitely seen your work. Yeah, you really do like using thick lines. I like that. Yeah, I've always think having like thick lines, especially even having a mixture of both like thin and thick lines, they always I think those always pop a lot more rather than using thin lines. However, what I normally do, like for me, is as you probably see, is that I always start with very thin lines first, and depending on what I have planned, like for the drawings, like I'll probably keep the thin lines in the middle, and actually going thick right now makes sense later down the line. Oh, oh wow! I didn't even intend to do that. I honestly did not intend to do that, but wow, that how that actually fits. Yeah, but I just kind of do thin in the middle, and I just go thicker as I go work further out. Oh yeah, that's definitely what I'm decided to do for the guitar. Like, figure since he likes donuts, I want to kind of go for that aesthetic and that donut like look. And it's funny how like that became like a thing with Homer is that for those pink donuts. Cause I know in the show that's always been the thing he's like donuts, but I don't think the pink donut. I think that really didn't become a thing until like much later in the show. I can't really much later in the show, or probably when the movie came out. Because I remember in the movie like they used that a lot in a lot of the in a lot of the trailers and a lot of the advertisements. And kind of getting the prawns in the middle. Let's kind of lightly kind of go over. go over the fretboard. I think one episode that came to mind that kind of inspired me to do so was that one where he goes like to a rock camp and he actually runs these different like famous musicians where they actually lend their voices. I think who would they get on there? I think Mick Jack. I think you or Mick Jagger. I think was there. I think Keith Richards. Brian Setzer, who I've seen live. He's fantastic. Brian Setzer, they had him there. Lenny Kravitz. Elvis Costello, they had him there. Tom Petty, he was on there too. Okay, good. So now let's get to the fun part. So let me get my black pen. I'm gonna use this black Sharpie marker. And so I'm gonna go really thick around our outline here. I know it might seem a little odd now, but it'll make sense as I'm going further down the line. I'm just gonna go around the neck. And when it comes to doing lines, like for some reason, once you get the thin lines in, once those are down pat, when it comes to doing thick lines, like for some reason they tend to be a lot easier to do. Since I already got these strands here, I'm not gonna kind of go over those. I'm kind of leave those as is. There we go, that looks alright. And also what I'm gonna do in the meantime, I'm just kind of lightly go on the edge of him. So I'm gonna kind of alternate between use like a white and black outline to kind of make him pop. So I'm just kind of go around his silhouette. Because you guys already know me, anytime I work with drawing characters, I always try to make sure silhouettes pop. Oh yeah, thick lines also you can do, so you press do 2 for profile page, not per art. Yeah, I've definitely noticed that, cause I know knows I do it a lot too. Yeah, because you know, thick lines, they really pop because you know they're bold, you know, they're striking. And they capture your attention too. I think one artist that I got that influenced my work a lot is that as far as when I was learning how to do line work, I think it had to be probably Al Hirschfeld. Now, for those who don't know Al Hirschfeld, he was an illustrator and caricature artist, and he was more well known for doing a lot of like character drawings for the New Yorker back in the day, and he did I think for about I want to say for about 60, 70 years. He'd been doing it for years. But he would have these really like striking and like character drawings, but they'd be very minimalistic too. But he would use like these really strong, like thick lines to capture a person's likeness. Remind us to use some samples later, show you some art when you stick lines. Oh yeah, most definitely. Later on, I think we're done after the stream. I'd definitely like to see more of your stuff. And even when I was learning trying to do caricatures, sometimes I would study his stuff too. But his stuff is surprisingly pretty hard because like while he's really good at getting a likeness down, he often does it in a very minimalistic way too, because he'll probably use only a few lines, but yet he'll get them like down packed. And on top of that, you know, like some are a little rougher, like some are very more streamlined. Alright, see how that kind of looks now. In fact, let me see if I can bring this in just a bit more. Yeah, there we go. Because I know sometimes he would have a whole bunch like all together. Because I think he would, because of course his wall would be in black and white, but like sometimes he would do them in color, and he would use a lot of colors. We kind of like have them kind of like blend together and kind of blend against each other. I know one that comes to mind is that I don't remember what I found, what I saw. I'd love to find it one day. What did you look at the most and study the most? Oh, that is a tough one because there are a lot of different artists that I watch and study from a lot. I definitely say from one particular for me, one of my major ones that really was influential probably Bob Ross, the painter, because I know back when I really started getting serious about doing art, I used to do a lot of painting. So I would watch every Sunday morning, like I would watch his episodes. In some cases I would actually walk. I would record them. I watched on VHS. That kind of gave me an idea how old I am. I knew how to use like VHS from back in the day. And sometimes I'll play them back, and of course I'll try to paint along with them. Cause another thing that helped them when that get me into is I attended like a Bob Ross class. Yeah, there was over in the rec center not too far from where I live. There was an instructor who would actually do classes, and so of course my parents, they knowing that I liked art, and knowing that I liked them painting, they let me do it, and so it was so much fun. It was wonderful. Because I know Bob Ross, that was a big one. Another one that was surprisingly pretty influential was animator Preston Blair, because he had the animation book. Because even though I haven't really done actually like animation per se, like it was a big influence in actually like learning how to draw like cartoon characters and drawing them in a way that actually made them actually more like readable, and lively. I just remember Bob Ross coming a kid. I eventually invested, and I would have curly hair is doing. Yeah, because the cool thing about it with him is that like he would always meant to have like a full payment in 30 minutes, but also it was his calm demeanor too. Because think about it, because like, there have been like other artists who have actually did have like their own show. Because I know one particular like what was the guy's name? Because he was the guy that Bob Ross had learned the web technique from. I think it was I think it was a Jerry Alexander. In fact, let me look up real quick. Let me see. Bill Alexander. He was a German artist, and he had kind of like taught Bob Ross the reference. Oh yeah, it's fantastic. But Bill Alexander, he kind of taught Bob like what tech like paint technique. And funny enough, for a while, like he had his own show too. And I'd seen a few episodes. It was interesting. Like his personality was very different. Because of course, he's very flamboyant. He's very lively. He's very eccentric. And what's interesting though is that like when you compare that to Bob, like Bob, he was very chill, he was very low key, and he was very mellow. One thing I did was had a purple crayons in the cartoon. The way he would draw his lines out and cut to show how he draw was always awesome to me. It's funny enough, I've heard of the purple crayon, but I had never seen it. But I've heard it. I've heard at least the actual cartoon and the actual books were wonderful. Not the movie though. I've heard the movie's awful. But I've heard the actual cartoons and the books were great. I know one childhood memory I had when it comes to drawing, it would have to be Blue's Clues, because I remember like Steve would have a handy dandy notebook, and a lot of times I would draw along with him, as he was drawing out like the different clues. And you can see I'm just kind of going over with the Sharpie marker and actually kind of like really kind of giving like a nice like striking appearance. I think I have a few extra spikes here. So what I'm gonna do now is that let me just kind of go over some of these other lines a bit here too. Some I'm gonna thicken out, others I'm actually going to smooth them out. I didn't mean to make it that thick. I didn't mean to do it for that one. But that's alright, I'll make it work. But what was the other thing I was gonna mention? Oh, what was it? What was it? Oh yeah, but I know with Bob Ross, yeah, Blues was out here how hair went. Yeah, the movie was terrible. They wouldn't even show you out here doing more. Yeah, it's cut of finished product. Cause I've seen like some like bits like from the trailers, and it seemed like when they started working on it, they had an idea what they wanted to do, but they just didn't want to commit to it. Because that's the weird thing with a lot of these like these reboots when they reboot like these popular properties, like they either don't understand like the property, or they do understand. It's just like they just don't want you to commit to because for whatever reason, either from marketing or what else. And it's strange 'cause I think it had like Zachary Levi too, like who's known for playing like very like bright, wide-eyed characters. And you figure like that would be a good match, but I think it chucked him around to the writing because one thing I've come to accept, when it comes to movies, like you could probably have like the best like all-star cast, but if you have like a bad script and a director who doesn't know what he's doing, it can easily kind of like can fall to the wayside. First 4 minutes were great because yeah, and that's why I've heard too. The whole first were fully animated instead of me. I had to cram before me give up and having to go to real for no reason. Yeah, I have no idea why like these modern reboots. So I just feel need to do that. Why is it in the real world and why take them of the out of the setting that makes a lot of these properties interesting? Like I don't know why they keep doing it because I know it happened. With happened with the Smurfs movies and to an extent with the Chip movies too. Well, Chip movies they were already in the real world, but yeah, like I have no idea why they keep doing that. Yeah, let me just around the neck of the bottom of his car. I'm just kind of thick out, so you can see like some lines I'm keeping kind of thin as is. Others I'm kind of starting to thicken up, just so it can actually kind of like make them pop. And it's also like since for a few of these I'm actually like going back over and actually getting a bit more color. Some I'm going to actually probably gonna redo in a little bit. And a lot of times I'll do kind of a tapering effect where like see right here it was kind of thick in the middle. I kind of tapered so it actually matches up with these lines in the middle. And now for the fun part is that now I'm gonna start adding some darker shadows here. Alright, we're gonna go to real. Oh, we're gonna go real, but actually it's happened. Yeah, I can't imagine because hearing that reminds me of the so many fanfic I used to read like back in the day when I used to write a lot of fan fiction, and of course when I used to read the ones on fanfiction.net, and you wouldn't believe the number of like fanfics I came across where it was basically an OC actually either animates either go into the real world. No, actually it was always the opposite. It was basically OC's a fan of the Animaniacs. Their watchers showed it. Sometimes they get zapped into the TV, and oftentimes they end up meeting the Warners. They end up getting caught in antics. And granted, a lot of times they end up kind of evolving to do just like word for word scripts of actual episodes, which I don't mind too much. The only thing about it is just like a lot of times if it's just the original script, it's like if I wanted to listen to the actual script, I'd actually watch the actual episode. But there were like some of those fan fictions where they kind of took that format, whether you're taking to the real world or like the real person that's again the cartoon world too, and actually did a really good job with it. Because I'm trying to think which one that kind of comes to mind. I'm trying to think which one comes to mind because I know one that slightly kind of falls that category was it was I forgot who wrote it. I think but I think it was called Family. And in that one, it was basically one where like the siblings are actually orphans, and as they're and they're poor, but throughout the show, they're kind of like learning how to survive before landing at Warner Brothers. But what was interesting is like even though their antics are still very toony, the whole area is pretty grounded because like both humans and toons coexist within the world, and it's pretty interesting setup because like it's kind of set in the real world, but like tunes actually interact with real Conquer Roger Rabbit type of deal. I remember after the early days of some part of this fantasy of Tanic the Hedgehog about someone like OC coming to the real world and meaning the creator of the OC. I think I've seen that one. At very least, I've seen a lot of fics that had that same type of deal too, where they actually meet the OCs. Yeah, and those were often pretty fun. I think another fic that kind of comes to mind, I think on where they had the OC meet the Warners, what I guess happened in real. There was one I think was called that was surprisingly kind of serious. It was called Lucy's New Life, and basically what that one was, I think it was kind of one. I think where the OC character, she was kind of suffering from like suffering from domestic abuse. It actually gets pretty heavy at times, but they end up kind of going to the mixed world. Like I forgot how it happened, but it ended up becoming kind of like a coping mechanism for his character. Because apparently, like for the actual author, you know, like him, that person I kind of watched and show it helped him out for a lot of like really serious times. But it was, and the funny thing is, like even though like the actual fic, you know, it captured the Animaniacs vibe very well, but also it really held him with the serious moments a lot more too. Like it knew when to be like really silly and goofy, but when the situation called for things to get serious, it actually would get serious. And unfortunately, I cannot remember who wrote it, but they were fantastic. In fact, I hope they're still the writing this day because, I tell you, they did a really good job. And that's the funny thing when it comes to fanfics. I've met so many like different artists, different like writers who were like really good when it came to like just writing like great captivating stories. And funny enough, I think when it comes to doing animes, I think I was doing fan fiction for anime. I think before probably a good whiles before, and like I started actually doing like fan art of them. Because part of when I got into doing fan fictions, of course, you know, that was back when animes they had made their appearance on the hub, and that was kind of a fun thing because I know I had watched Animaniacs on man, it's like in the past, you know, back when it used to be out on like on Cartoon Network back in the day, you know, back when it came out back in the '90s. Of course, I saw it when reruns when it was on Nickelodeon for a good while. Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of sad. Mr. Fan had that kind of soul where like people could cope out their own problems they've had, and I was just loud as fanfic. And oh, I haven't tackled that whole like cluster that is loud as fanfic because I heard there are so many that are out there. I think there's one particular, I can't remember the name, where apparently it's like, I think it's over like 3 million words, if not more. Which is strange. Like I'm surprised that they can manage to write that many chapters. Yeah, and that's the thing, cause like, and that's the thing with a lot of some of these fanfics, especially some of these newer ones. Like there are some that they'll watch that tend to have a lot of heart, but then there are others where it just seems like kind of going through they're just kind of going through the motions. And that's why I said earlier, like I often really didn't care for the ones like where they would just kind of like copy beat for beat, you know, actual episodes. Because I mean, if you're gonna do that, I'd rather just watch the actual episodes themselves. But the ones where they actually write new dialogue for the actual characters and actually write original dialogue, or at least that's in the feel of that show, like that's I think where the real kind of passion goes to, because it shows how much, you know, like this author really loves the show. It shows how much they appreciate it, how much it's actually influenced, you know, like their writing style. Yeah. As far as Lucy's New Life, I want to say it's complete. I'm not 100% sure it is. I wouldn't be surprised it is because it's been years ago, like since I had watched it. But if it is, I'll have to kind of check it out because it's definitely one that definitely required some closure. And you can see, guys, what I'm doing right now. I'm actually kind of going out. That's it. Loud's Revamp is a long piece of literature and history. It's got this guy's always super rich and cool and has superpowers. So basically, a Gary Sue or Mary Sue in a way, basically, from what I've heard. Who meet the Louds apparently. Yeah, that's it. That's it right there. In fact, now that I think it's probably not even 3 million, but it's probably way more than that. Now that I'm thinking about it. And also, in the meantime, as you can see, I've kind of started actually like laying out like the dark shadows, like cell shading, something I'm really kind of starting embracing now a lot more. And also, I'm gonna start putting down some gray. Let's get these nutshells, and even though it's kind of running out of ink, I'm not gonna actually go too hard with these. I saw some reels super funny. Ironically, the OC is Mary June as a butler who's Alfred from Batman. You know what's weird? I actually kind of want to see it now, cause that's one thing I've always liked with fanfics. Like even if I came across some whether they were good or bad, I've always appreciated like fanfics where they got crazy. And it sounds like, at least from what I'm hearing, just from that little bit alone, it does get pretty crazy down the line. Because that's the thing about it. Because something's crazy, that never really gets boring. Because I'd rather watch something, watch or read something that's quote bad rather than boring. Because sometimes boring is worse than bad. Because at least if something's bad, you have something to talk about. Bad can be fun sometimes, but if it's boring, it doesn't leave much of an impression. But even though I haven't seen this fanfic, it looks like it's anything but boring. Boring, and then you get some that are just kind of bizarre. Like I know, like on a slight detour, I know one I saw years ago was it was an Aladdin fanfic, interesting of all places, and that one there was a strange thing. So it was one where it's centered around. So okay, so first off, it was Aladdin fanfic where Aladdin's not in the picture. He doesn't appear at all in this fanfic. It's centered around Princess Jasmine, and it's an alternate universe where she still wants to see the world. She escapes from the palace, but instead of falling in love with Aladdin, she ends up falling in love with that Gar. Like super crazy, like my bow listening to it. There's a chapter which is a rewrite episode. It means Norman told Lincoln gets yelled at. Oh god. Yeah, now I really kind of want to check this out. But the one, and guys, let's see, it's yelling, telling sisters, like yell at. Oh wow, and I think I've heard that. Now I'm thinking, I think I actually heard that actually does happen. Oh man, it's weird. Now you got me wanting to check it out. Now I might have to go check it out for real. Like once I'm done with this. But yeah, that does sound hilarious. But the one that I was thinking of, so where was I? But the one I was thinking of that's the latter one. So it's centered around like Princess Jasmine, but here's a strange thing. So instead of falling in love with Aladdin, like of course in the movie, he ends up falling with Razul. For those who don't remember Razul, he was that captain guard that was the guard that would always try to capture Aladdin, but he was also kind of a bully too. And so they had this weird thing where it seemed like they were trying to set up something like the bodyguard, where he's kind of looking at. She keeps trying to train for the palace to the world, but he's kind of looking out for her and making sure she's not getting up in too much trouble. And the weird thing is, it almost works at some point, but the weird thing is, like, it gets really quick, because then there's like a subplot where I think one of the like side characters of the TV show, they have a side plot, but then there's also like later on down there's like a nuclear comet it's about to hit Agrabah, and it's like the whole thing. It is a mess, but yet when all those 38 chapters, because it was 38 chapters too, and yet somehow I ended up going through all 38 chapters of this whole thing. And see, that's kind of the beauty of, like, even, like, crazy fanfic. Like, sometimes you never know, like, what you're gonna get. And so, let me do, if I can switch back out from this one back to the old marker, because you can see what I'm doing is that I'm actually kind of, like, going over and adding these darker shadows. There we go. Because I'm trying to think, what's another good one that I can think of off the top of my head that was great? Because there have just been like so many. there have been so many like good ones that I've seen. There was another one. I think it was themes. I think of anime. I think it was theme song goes wrong. I guess the animators are trying to do the theme song, but things keep going wrong. Yeah, we can be. It's a bad. Even with battery, it can be funny made by someone who's passionate about the serious topic. Yeah, exactly. When it's made by someone else that's really passionate and has a lot of like love and appreciation for it, it gets. That's where it gets really fun. Yeah, in fact, let me add a little shadows here underneath the guitar here. That's looking pretty good. I'm trying to think, what do I want to do for clear the guy who wrote the Loud Ramp is very passionate. Get oh yeah, you'd have to be very passionate about that if you're gonna write that much for it. Give out the biggest thesis literature in the world. Yeah, you have to be passionate if you're actually gonna be able to do that much for it. And so, let me see what I want to do for the outside. Nah, do I want to stick with that? Nah, I don't think I want to use. I want to use this. I don't think I want to use this. I'm gonna use a red. Yeah, and that's the key thing. Like what's that yeah, once you're really passionate about something, like regardless of how good or bad it is, like it's going to shine through. But of course, because I've read some where they were long, but it didn't sound like they were passionate at all. And usually these were ones where they often were crossover fics. Now, crossover fics, those can be really good, but a lot of the ones that I've read, they've often became like really kind of frustrating, and kind of like really like aggravating to read because sometimes what happens like let's say if there's like three fandoms like mixed together. Oh, thank you. I'm glad you love it. Because one thing about crossover thick is that like, let's say if it's a crossover that has like three different fandoms, you could probably have that one fandom the author is a fan of. They get them down pat. They get them really good. But there could be two other fandoms that you might like, but but for some reason they'll just miss the mark completely. And either because they aren't too familiar with the show, or because they're trying to juggle so many characters. Because like that's what happens. They'll try to get so many characters, and try to make sure everyone ever has something to say. Like the whole thing just gets really cluttered. Like I remember there was one what was one that was a huge cluster. So there was one, I think it was what was it? I cannot think off the top of my head. It was one thing for a Disney's movie. Like, so here was a strict thing. It was a mixture of three fandoms. It was Oliver's. I love the details cover. I love detail color and shade and light on Homer. Thank you. I'm really glad dudes are really loving this. Yeah, you can see I just want to do something just a little bit different what I normally do. It's like, in fact, I've been trying to do this a little more often because I want to do something that's a little more that's a little more graphic and it's a little more graphic, more pop art like. Because what I'm about to say, because there was one like CrossFit I came across years ago where it was I've asked places to beautiful. I'll post on social media tomorrow morning. Oh, excellent! Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to check it out once you post it. Like I still need to post the other drawings I'd already shared and did from yesterday's stream. I meant to have done earlier this morning. I still might have it posted later on tonight, if not later this afternoon. That's fine. Look at me. I'm just kind of going all over the place. But let me see how this look. Let me see how this looks. I color over it. Let me see how that looks. Okay, that looks good. Okay, I wasn't sure how. Yeah, you did a great call. You make them so cool. There's a neat edge to it. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Every time I draw something, especially with Homer, I always try to give him that big edge. Especially like since he's a character that's very abrasive and kind of rough around the edges. Funny thing is that when I think about Homer, for some reason, like the lines that make me crack up with Homer, are probably the ones where he'll say something and he'll be completely oblivious at how mean or how mean it sounds. Like I think it was that one. I think it was in Lisa's poem where of course it's that one chorus. She like Homer actually get Lisa a pony, and Bart actually taught him. It's like, hey, how come Lisa how come Lisa gets a pony? And of course Homer tells him, you're like, oh, because I don't want her to, yeah, because I want her to love me again. And then of course Bart says like, well, I hate you, buy me a moped. And of course Homer responds like this. He goes, ha, I know you already love me, so you don't get squat. Because it's like so. Because it's funny, because like he'll say it because he's being so sincere and honest, but at the same time he's unaware like how mean that sounds. Let me see what other pencils I had. I had another pink pencil I was using. Where did it go? Where was it? I just had it. Well, where did it go? Where did it go? Yeah, stand by, guys. I'm trying to figure out what happened to these pencils. I just had it a moment ago. Ah, here we go. Perfect. I grew up watching Angelina Jolie in 2001. It was making mention of probably play Battle Paces. You know what? Honestly, one of these days I will have to check it out because I've seen a little bit on TV in the past, but I haven't really chance to really sit down in a long time. And we have for now. I'll see you catch the last part stream. I'll try to be here for Saturday for next stream. Can see we draw next. Hey, Spiffy, I'm really glad you were to drop in for today's stream. It was really good getting to chat with you during the stream. Yeah, so I'll see you later. Yeah, here we go. Here's the pink that I was looking for. I was looking for a pink that had more of a, pink that had more of a pink that has like a darker charge shade of color. So I'm just gonna do it to kind of go around like the body of the guitar. I'm just gonna do it around here too. Yeah, because I also definitely gonna go around here on the edge. I think I'm gonna keep this white. Have this here, I'm gonna go around the edge, just kind of going like I figured the whole guitar would be kind of pink, because I figured like pink would be something that Homer would play. Also, so if you're still there, I hope you feel. I'm glad to hear that you're feeling better now, but I hope you continue to feel better for the rest of the day. And also, what I'm gonna do in the meantime is that let me kind of go over these shadows a bit. Let me kind of like fine tune them a bit. I'm gonna kind of go over his shade the part where his eyes are. I'm gonna get underneath the nose. Also, let me kind of get underneath his hands here. Yeah, I think I was kind of starting the edges to be really thick, and as I'm kind of start working my way out. Alright, so let me get out the underside of his arm here. Let me get it here. Let me get it here too. Yeah, because now that I've finished everything, with most of everything for the most part, now I'm just gonna actually little touch-ups here and there, where I'm just thinking where some areas can be touched up, some areas that might need a little bit of extra details here and there. Like I think for here, I'll probably add just a little bit of shadows here for where his hands. So I'm actually gonna do that. I think actually extra shading here. Alright, so I'm gonna add something. I'm gonna use a ballpoint pen to kind of go over it. In fact, just for extra difference, like I figure since it's in the moment, let me just add a little bit of like sweat. So he's probably like sweating like really hard too. I figure knowing him, maybe he's probably listening to some old school, maybe 70s rock. Especially since if you're going by classic Simpson, of course, he's definitely like a 70s kid. So of course he would grew up kind of watching like maybe listening to AC/DC, like Edgar Winters. He probably would be that. Although I wouldn't be surprised if he started to do more like if he checked out some harder stuff, some more harder music, I could see him really kind of getting down with that kind of stuff. And also, let me see. Let me kind of bring, yeah, let me kind of bring these shells out a bit more too. So let me bring this out. I'm gonna kind of shade the bottom portion here. All right, so that looks good. That looks good. All right. So what else can I affect? Let me kind of bring some of these sprinkles back more here, you know, on this guitar. Let me swing it out. Let me kind of shade around the areas where his thing is here. I'm trying to see what else can I add. I figured maybe I'll kind of add little vibrations like around his finger just to kind of get an idea, you know, like how, you know, how intense, you know, he's strumming. And I definitely am considering doing another one of these like in the near future where I'm drawing another picture like this. I'm not sure who I'll draw next to style. Maybe I'll probably do like a Groundskeeper Willie next, like for the something like this. Yeah, that's probably what we'll end up doing, but yeah, but I haven't really kind of set everything in stone like just yet. Yeah, because that's one thing. I always end up like drawing a lot of like cartoon characters, you know, like in you know, as rock stars. Because I love how this is turning out. I think I got a little bit of shadow here along his nose. That's looking pretty good. I think I'm actually gonna shade, you know, around, you know, his mouth here too. Let me add a little shadow underneath his collar. Let me add his collar too. Good, good, good. Good, good, good. Alright, so what can I add next? I think I'll add some little streaks of blue here too. I think I'll probably just go over the areas where too. Alright, that's looking alright. That's looking pretty good. In fact, what I'll do next, let me see if I have my other Sharpie mark. Okay, perfect. So I got this white one here. So what I'm gonna do, I'm just kind of go over you know, like there, I'm gonna kind of try to make it to tidy up just a bit more. Where I'm just kind of go over the line a bit, just kind of go over the areas where it's kind of, where a line is kind of thin, the white line is kind of thin, and actually just go over it so it's a little more uniform. So it looks a little more uniform, looks a little more neater. Yeah. And for you, like using paint markers, that's something I've really started learning how to really get embraced, and something I've really started learning how to really use. So yeah, this is something I really starting to use. Of course, I don't have too many. Well, I do have a few because I have a few Poshka pens. Yeah, but it's still a medium that I'm still kind of like getting used to, you know, learning how to do, because, you know, trying to layer with pens, like that's something I never really got around to really like learning how to do. Yeah, honestly, and seeing, you know, seeing how it's kind of turning out, it doesn't seem as lopsided now as it was before. Yeah, that looks alright. That looks good. Alright, let me go around the edge. Let me go around the edge on the bottom here. I'm trying to say, maybe I'll add a little bit of highlight here. Alright, that looks good. Okay, so, what can I add next? So, I got colored in his guitar, colored in his back here. I think I will add little shells here on there's underside here. Up here, let me kind of go on the underside of his guitar. Right here. I think I will add a little bit of shadow here on the bottom portion of his guitar here. I think I will do that. Yeah, because I figure like since that part's in shadow, I think that's what's best I go and actually do that. And now also let me kind of go around the border where I have the white part here. So I'm just gonna go over the lines I just made. I'm gonna come down. And even I'm using like a ballpoint pen, so of course, you know, like sometimes when you're using ballpoint pen on top of pencil, because, you know, pencil's very thick, you know, it can be hard to kind of lay down properly. So that's why a lot of times I try to do, if I'm sketching with a ballpoint pen, I try to get that done first before I move on to doing anything else like next. And I think what I'll do next afterwards, let me see if I still have that brown. Okay, good, I'm gonna have that brown, so I'm just gonna go over some of the that orange that I had, to kind of go over that, kind of blend things out just a bit, just to kind of make it a lot more neater and tidier, because we'll be almost done with this pretty soon. Yeah, because this is turning out wonderfully. Yeah, and honestly, I think this can end up turning up a lot and coming together a lot quicker than than I expected. I was genuinely surprised at how well that it's doing that. Yeah, because this looks good. This looks good. Trying to see. Let me just step back for a moment. Yeah, because a lot of times what I do is that if I'm working on something like working, especially for a long period of time, like one thing I have to remember to do is actually kind of like step back for a moment so I can kind of look and see if anything like sticks out. Like I figured here I probably had some kind of like lines. So I figured maybe he's probably like swinging the guitar around, as as he's playing it, because he's that like into the moment. Yeah, but I think I think this is looking pretty good. I don't think there's any more I can do for this one. So actually let me get my bigger pencil. It shows up a lot better. So guys, so I think that's what we got here for Homer Simpson shredding on guitar. So I believe that is it for for this guy right here. So for those who've kind of come and gone, so Spiffy, I was glad you were able to drop in for this stream, and Shay, I was really glad you were able to kind of like drop in like for this one too. And so I definitely plan on streaming again like later on, like next week, if not sooner. And just in the meantime, guys, I hope you guys liked the other stuff, I've been doing like the episode collector. I hope you guys liked, one I did, with Krusty here. I hope you guys like that one. Yeah, maybe in the near future I'll probably show the working process I do for that one. And for this one, I think I recorded this one too when I did react one. That one far I might show some process I did for that one too. But guys, I hope you guys really enjoyed me doing today's stream. I'm glad all of you that were able to drop in, especially on such short notice. And guys, I hope to see you all, next time. So until then, have a great day, have a great week. See you next time. Oh.